Welcome back, riders. Today we will be counting down every single roller coaster I rode 10 or more times in 2023. I made a video similar to this last year, except that video was combined for 2020, 2021, and 2022. If you're interested in that video, I'll go ahead and put it on the card at the top of your screen now. This video is specifically 2023 only. This video is not a review of each coaster. Rather, I will just explain how I was able to get my rides, how many times I went to their respective parks, things like that. Any tiebreakers will go to the coaster I like more. At the end of the video, I'll have a complete list of every roller coaster I've ridden at least 10 times in my entire lifetime if you're interested in that. Let's jump right in. First, I have three honorable mentions. They were the only three roller coasters that had 9 rides, and I thought they were far enough from home to warrant like a mention. The first is Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm. I spent a day and a half at Knott's Berry Farm, and the full day I did have Fast Lane, so it was pretty much a walk on whenever I used Fast Lane. Ghost Rider is in the same boat as Hang Time, obviously being at Knott's Berry Farm as well, so a day and a half, full day with Fast Lane. The Fast Lane line was a little longer for Ghost Rider than Hang Time, but never more than a few trains, and I think normally I would have ridden Ghost Rider more, but I actually didn't ride Hang Time until those days and a half, so I was trying to get more rides to get a feel for that ride, and Ghost Rider was a little underwhelming for me this year. My last honorable mention is Terran at Fantasia Land with 9 rides. Every single ride we had was through the single rider line, and it definitely shaved majority of the line for each of our rides. Starting off the proper list, we have a roller coaster that should really be higher on the list, Demon at Six Flags Great America, with 10 rides. As you may or may not know, Six Flags Great America is my home park. I made it to the park 20 times this season. The majority of the visits were like between 2.5 and 5.5 hours long in the second half of the day, but there were a couple full days or almost full days in there. Demon specifically always has one of the shorter lines in the park, so that's why I rode it a decent amount, and I actually liked the ride, but it was closed for majority of the year, so that is why it is not higher. Had it been open for most, if not all, my visits, I'm sure I would have cracked at least 30 rides. Up at 30th is Racer at Kings Island, specifically the red side, with 10 rides. I spent 11 days at Kings Island during the year, about an even split of them being full days or half days. I actually rode blue side only one time this year because red side had the better retracking and was running better. So that is how Racer made the list this year, because normally I split it evenly between the two and neither of them make it, but now since one of them was lopsided, I guess it made the cut. Most of my visits during the year was also when Racer was on early entry, and I have a friend that also works at Racer, so that's why I rode it maybe a little more than I normally would. I know I got one rewrite on Racer Red as well, and I also had Fastlane for a couple of those days too, so that helped with the line a couple times. The next 3 spots are all from Holiday World, the first being Legend with 10 rides. I spent 2 full days at Holiday World during the Hollywood Nights event, so not only did I ride when the park was open, but I also rode during exclusive ride time, or ERT for short. A couple of these rides were re-rides during the aforementioned ERT as well. Next from Holiday World is Voyage with 11 rides, which again is a result of 2 full days at the park with ERT. Last, or I guess first, for Holiday World is Thunderbird with 12 rides. It's the same story as Legend and Voyage, but I will say my top 3 at the park goes from 1 Thunderbird, 2 Voyage, 3 Legend, so maybe that's why I got one more ride on Thunderbird than Voyage and one more ride on Voyage than Legend. But, same story. ERT, I actually, it's at the top of the hill. So whenever you hike up there, you're going to ride it a couple times. I got a couple re-rides. A bunch of my rides were during the night, which was awesome. But yeah, definitely recommend Hollywood Nights. And I will be going back this year. So if anyone else is, let me know. Coming in 26 is the only representative from California, excluding the honorable mentions at least, Twisted Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain with 13 rides. I spent almost 3 full days at the park this year, and had Flash Pass for one of those days. But there was also times when there was literally no line, and I believe I got a re-ride or two. 25th is Monster from Adventureland with 14 rides. I spent a full day at the park, plus maybe 2 hours on another day. This is the only ride worth waiting more than like 15 minutes for in this park, and on its own, it's a fantastic roller coaster, so it's not really a shocker that this is the only roller coaster I've ridden more than once at the park, excluding each side of Dragon Slayer, I guess, because I wanted to try both sides. But other than that, I've only been on every roller coaster once here except Monster. Coming in at 24th is a roller coaster that I was a little surprised I didn't ride more at first, but it kind of makes sense. Magnum XL200 at Cedar Point with 14 rides. I spent 6 days at the park this year. Some were half days, some were full days across two separate trips out to Ohio. For each day, I was able to redeem my 2024 all-season Fastlane, which was a pleasant surprise. So I spent a lot of time like elsewhere in the park. The main reason I had gotten so many rides on Magnum in 2021 and 2022 was because I didn't have Fastlane. It was always one of the shortest lines in the park while also being a really good ride. But now that I have Fastlane, that doesn't really matter now, which resulted in less rides, unfortunately. Coming in 23rd is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion with 14 rides. I went to King's Dominion 3 straight days. One of them was a half day in the evening. One of them was just an hour for night rides, and then the last was like the first half of the day. This coaster never had a line, not once. They would also let you re-ride once if your row was empty, which happened a few times for me. My favorite number is 22, and my 22nd most ridden coaster of the year was The Beast at Kings Island with 16 rides. I went to the park 11 times this year, some being full days, some being half days. I had Fastlane a couple of times, which helped with the line a few times, especially with night rides. And I also got one re-ride, which is pretty cool. I never thought I'd get one on The Beast. Also, the Beast is located in Rivertown, which is where I spend most of my time while at Kings Island, so that helps I get a few more rides. Coming in 21st is Mugani at Lost Island with 16 rides. This coaster had absolutely no line when I visited. Unfortunately, they did not allow re-rides, so I had to walk around after each ride. I was literally riding every other cycle. I think I was only on one full train all day. At least it was a good workout running around each time. Coming in 20th is my second favorite coaster overall, Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland Japan with 17 rides. This one's pretty easy. This never really had a line on the day we were there. I was also able to get some re-rides by seat hopping. Coming in 19th is Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket at Universal Studios Florida with 18 rides. I visited the resort on 7 different days this year, some of those being full days and some of them partial days. And during my time on resort, I would say I spent at most a third of it at the Studios Park rather than Islands of Adventure. Rip Ride Rocket usually had a shorter line in the park, so it wasn't that hard to get my rides. Plus, I used the single rider line for a good chunk of my rides. And I had an incentive to ride it a good amount because I wanted to try a lot of the secret soundtrack songs. So I had a goal, I guess, to ride this more this year. Number 18 is Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. I'm winded after that. At the park next door, Islands of Adventure, with 18 rides. Again, 7 days of park, some full days, some partial days. For this one specifically, though, I'll just say it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Moving on. Back to my home park for number 17, which is Batman the Ride at Six Flags Great America with 19 rides. This did not apply to getting my rides on Demon, but I had all season Flash Pass this year, the gold tier, which helped me get more Batman rides and any coaster from Six Flags Great America that might appear further down on this list. This is actually a ride I wish I rode a little more, but I find the queue pretty unbearable in the summer as the tunnels, they just bake you to death. I'm sweating bullets in there. It took me too long to realize that I could just wait until like the night or late evening to get my rides. Once I realized that, I did 2 or 3 mini marathons to end off those visits to the park. The operators were very chill with re-rides during these marathons, and there was no line, so this is something I will look to do a little more next year. Coming in 16th is Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion with 20 rides. Pretty much the same story as Intimidator 305, where I went to King's Dominion 3 straight days. The first was the second half of the day. The second day was just for an hour for night rides, and then the last day was the first half of the day. This coaster almost never had a line, and they would also let you re-ride once you found an empty seat, which happened for pretty much all my rides. Number 15 is the only representative for my self-proclaimed second home park, Steel Hog at Indiana Beach with 21 rides. I only made it to Indiana Beach 3 times this year, and each visit was between 2 to 4 hours. I actually only rode Steel Hog for 2 of my visits. My last visit to the park, the line was way too long by the time I made it to the back of the park, and I was about to leave soon anyways, so I couldn't make it happen. But those other 2 visits, the line was only a couple train wait, and the ride operators actually recognized me from last season, and they let me take an empty seat whenever there was one. I would literally just like sit at the exit and wait for an empty seat to show up, so they were very chill there. Thanks. Coming in at 14th is Conda at Wallaby Belgium with 23 rides. This was literally only possible because of the single rider line. The main queue wasn't that crazy. I think it hovered around like 30 minutes all day, maybe it peaked at 45 minutes, but single rider line usually got us on within a few trains. I also got 1 or 2 re-rides from seat hopping. You know we couldn't avoid the Kings Island top 4 for long. Coming in 13th is Banshee at Kings Island with 26 rides. Again, 11 visits to the park, some being full days, some being half days. I had Fastlane a couple of those days. And just like Racer, this is the other coaster that was open during early entry for most of my visits to the park. And just like last year for the video I made, I tend to do Banshee multiple times in a row whenever I walk over to it before I move on to anything else. I guess you can consider this coaster this year's wild card, but it's not nearly as impressive or as random as my 50 rides on Sandy's Blasting Bronco last year. Coming in 12th is Air Force One at Fun Spot America Atlanta with 26 rides. I visited the park 3 straight days, but my first day was literally only for 15 minutes for night rides, and then the next 2 days were a few hours each. This coaster was a complete walk-on for every single one of my rides. I rope dropped Air Force One on Memorial Day, and I was the only person in the station. Like, literally, there weren't even any workers. I was the only person in there that you could see anywhere. Unfortunately, they did not allow re-rides when I was there, but unlike Matugani, I was usually able to get on the next train if I put some effort into running through the exit in the queue. Coming in 11th is my third favorite roller coaster, Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure with 29 rides. Again, 7 days at the park this year, some full days, some half days. Just like last year, I have a medical device, so I take an alternative route that allows me to skip like the last 15 minutes of the ride. Sometimes they offered re-rides when I did that, and like Hagrids, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Moving on. Back at the home park for Maggie's favorite roller coaster, number 10, XFlight at Six Flags Great America with 30 rides. This is pretty much the same explanation as Batman, minus the part where I bake in the line in the tunnels and avoid it. So naturally, it has a few more rides because I could ride it any time of day. Just like Batman, I did a few mini marathons to end out the night here as well, and the ride operators encouraged re-rides if you could find an empty seat. Continuing the Kings Island top 4 is number 9, Diamondback at Kings Island with 31 rides. Same story, 11 park visits, a mix of full days, partial days, and days with Fastlane. Diamondback has a few more rides than Banshee because 1, I like Diamondback more, and 2, Diamondback is in Rivertown where I spend most of my time when I'm at Kings Island. Coming in at number 8 is our last Universal coaster. Incredible Hulk Coaster at Islands of Adventure with 36 rides. Again, 7 days at the park, a mix of full days and partial days. A good chunk of my rides this year came from the single rider line. Plus, there was one day I went where it was so dead, and they let me stay in my seat if my row was empty. This resulted in 12 rides in about an hour while only going through the queue 3 times for those 12 rides. Now we have my favorite roller coaster at my home park, Goliath at Six Flags Great America with 41 rides. This one is nothing special. I feel like I rode it about twice every visit with my Flash Pass, and the total number of rides pretty much backs that up. I know sometimes I opted to use a single rider line, but it's not that much of a time saver compared to Flash Pass. Coming in at number 6 is another Kings Island Top 4 coaster, Orion at Kings Island with 41 rides. I don't have anything different to really say about this one. This is pretty much exactly like Banshee, where if I walked all the way over to Orion, I tended to ride this a few times before moving on to something else. Back to Cedar Point for my favorite roller coaster ever, at least for now. Number 5 is Maverick at Cedar Point with 46 rides. I spent 6 days at the park, some half days, some full days, across 2 separate trips to the park. For each day, I was able to redeem my 2024 all-season Fastlane I bought, so I spent a lot more time at Maverick this year compared to 2021 and or 2022. But even beyond having Fastlane, this is another coaster where it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. But also, the crew worked very hard to increase ridership and almost always called for single riders. Moving on. We made it to the last coaster from Kings Island. Number 4 is Mystic Timbers at Kings Island with 47 rides. Same story as the other Kings Island coasters, except Mystic is my favorite coaster, and there were times when I was trying to make it my all-time most ridden wooden roller coaster for like the 10th, 1000th time. So no surprise it ended up first at the park. It's also in Rivertown where I spend most of my time, so that helps get more rides. The final 3 coasters are all from my home park. Number 3 is Raging Bull at Six Flags Great America with 49 rides. I'm going to be honest, I know I wasn't really going to talk about like how the rides ride in this video, but Raging Bull was running amazing this year. It was easily running the best it ever has, at least in my lifetime as an enthusiast. If it was running like it was any other year, I'm pretty positive it would not have ranked nearly this high, but this is one of the easiest coasters to lap with my all-season Flash Pass, so that's also how I got a good chunk of my rides, but just in general, I was a lot more inclined to ride it more this year. Any other year, it would not have been number 3, that's for sure. Number 2 is actually a coaster I thought would take number 1. That is Viper at Six Flags Great America with 58 rides. So the Flash Pass was kind of a hit or miss in helping me get more rides on Viper. Most of the people working the merge completely filled the station, and if the station's full, it takes you like a solid 20 to 30 minutes to get on once you enter the station. And that kind of sucks. You can't really skip that with the Flash Pass. But a lot of times there was no line at all, and this is a great coaster to spend if you want a ton of rides, a good ride, that kind of thing. For most of my visits, I spent the last half hour just re-riding Viper because the ride-ups like actively encourage seat hopping to an empty row, and almost nobody joins the line at park close. They're gonna go ride what they think's better. So I could just lap this till park close. Number 1 might be a surprise to people that don't follow me on Instagram, but it is Max Force at Six Flags Great America with 62 rides. This one is a bit more specific. Max Force is not available on the Flash Pass for an unlimited amount of rides. You can only use Flash Pass once for Max Force per visit. But I also get 2 Skip the Line passes with my Legacy membership for every visit. So I get a total of 3 Skip the Lines per visit. And I always use all 3 at Max Force. And then I got a couple more rides by wait and standby. As promised, here is every single roller coaster I have ridden 10 or more times in my lifetime. except one couldn't fit on the screen. That coaster is the Kiddie Coaster at Fun Spot America Kissimmee with 10 rides. That might sound weird riding a small coaster 10 times, but the coaster actually used to be at a family entertainment center I used to go to when I was younger called Enchanted Forest, and I loved riding it there. So that's why I've ridden this super small kids coaster 10 times. I'm not going to go through all of these one by one, so feel free to pause the video now if you're interested in reading it. I have been keeping track of all my laps since 2015, so a lot of my list is pretty accurate. It's really just the Six Flags Great America coasters that are a little more uncertain, but even if they're off, it would only be by a couple of rides. My top 10 is 3 from Cedar Point, 3 from Kings Island, and 4 from Six Flags Great America. I think Steel Vengeance is going to drop out of the top 10 next year, but after that, I'm not really sure what to expect next year. I think I'm going to ride the other 9 in my current top 10, and then I'm going to get more rides on XFlight, Batman, and Demon a ton. So they could possibly crack the top 10, but I don't know at expense of what other coasters. But yeah, that's all I've got for today's video. What were your most ridden coasters for the year? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for checking out the video. Push down, pull up, exit to the right. Hope you enjoyed the video, and go have your greatest day yet. Choo choo, bye!